Welcome to Keep the Hotel Empty. Today we've kept the hotel empty to welcome in great friends of the show, Ben and Matt from In Transit. Today we're doing something a little different. We've moved the hotel across the hall to Divergent Guitar, and we're going to do a little album breakdown for their EP, Illusionary, released with Ashtray Monument. The guys have worked long and hard on it. We talked a little bit about it during their interview, but now we're going to go song by song and kind of get the real nuts and bolts of this piece of work you guys just dropped. So Ben and Matt, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Oh man, I'm happy to have you guys back. So let's just jump straight into this. I want to get into the first tracks right away, Transmission Gambit and Poison Pill. I want to ask you first, because this is kind of a thing that I noticed in the record as it goes, but right away you come out of the gate with the samples. I'm very curious why you chose to start with that, because it makes a very strong statement. Why start with the samples and those samples? And that kind of leads me into, and this you may answer by answering those questions, what is the importance of having the intro on the album?
It set the vibe, set the energy. Kind of has this, well, to get into the pre-pro stuff when I did, was the synths was the big portion of that. It's like it gives you that kind of creepy, almost, I was going for Sleep Token-esque kind of granular synth, and I wanted to emote something, and that Ben sent over that sample and was like, this would be perfect. And I'm like, I'm a big fan of the V for Vendetta stuff and the message itself. So it kind of just sets the tone for what's gonna happen, I think.
I would say that the impetus of that came from a few different things. So our first album, Signal Fires, it kicks off with a song that's about the joy of playing music and wanting to play music your whole life, no matter whether you make money off of it or not, right? And there was this sample, or not a sample, there was this documentary I had watched on the Washington music scene where Ian Mackay was interviewed, and he was talking about how, the DC music scene came out of just kids putting on shows and stuff like that. And I was like, God, this would be a great, kind of thing if we could turn it into some sort of sonic something, and we could use it for our show opener, right? And so that's how that came about, right? And then so now we're on to our second release, right? And we're talking about how to open it, and everybody was unanimous, like, we want to open this album with Poison Pills. Like, we want to kick the door in, because our first album, there's a lot of really open, airy, halftime, really lush, slower stuff, right? And so, part of writing Poison Pills was coming out of the gate 4 on the floor, which is a change of pace for us. And so we're like, well, how do we want to open that? Because that'll be how we open our live show too, right? And so we won't have that really cool opening kind of monologue, sonic monologue, or whatever you want to call it. And so Matt came up with the original kickoff riff to the song and wrote that. And it had that really slow, picking, moody kind of portion right at the beginning, which almost sounded out of place with the rest of the song.
Nice.
Right? And so, but it was so cool, we liked it. And as we kind of went on, we're like, well, let's build on that. And we ended up taking that little bitty guitar portion at the beginning of Poison Pills and ended up building Transmission Gambit out of it. And I'm a sucker for these samples. I love doing them. But honestly, we had the idea for Transmission Gambit for a while, but it's like,
how do you execute it? Yeah.
And what sample? Like, what sample would we use? And I was thinking about different things.
Right.
And nothing was really firing or inspiring it. We've always got a group chat going, and we'd be like, what about this? No. And then I don't even know why, but my wife and I were sitting around movie night one night. Like, how you get into Amazon and you just scroll and you look 400 movie.
Yep.
Somehow we landed on V for Vendetta, and I was like, I haven't seen this movie in forever. And I was like, you want to watch this, babe? And she's like, yeah, whatever. And we turned it on. We got into the movie, and I've forgotten how much I loved it. And honestly, you know, as we get further into this, so much about that movie held a recurring theme of where this album was going. And I was like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And then he lays into that one line, and I was like, that's it. Like, that's
line?
the line. The remember, the 5th of November.
Okay.
And I was like, wow. And so I pitched it to the rest of the guys, and they were like, yeah. And so, you know, Matt really like slowed it down and warbled it so that the cadence of his voice is actually going with the BPM of the song. And, you know, so that's kind of how that whole thing came to be, is like, that's now the new lead-in track to the live show.
So there wasn't much of a decision you had to make whether or not you were going to kick right in with Poison Pill or not. You knew that there had to be that bed because you wanted that to be part of the live show too.
Yep.
Yeah, it feels like it's home because of like what Ben said with Signal Fires, how, you know, in live we kind of open up with that sample from Ian, and it's like it just makes sense for us to do it now because it worked out so well because of what we already had from my demo of the stupid riff I put together for the intro of Poison Pills. It was just that, and then a quick little 3, maybe 4 chord octave picked riff with an Allen Ginsberg quote over it because I thought it would be cool and edgy. And it's like that idea of the guitar riff, the space that it was in, you know, that idea, but translate with different things, but keeping the riff and then just blurring it and having it transmit right over into Poison Pills. Like,
Right.
The way it just kind of worked, it's like, then we're like, oh, well, why don't we just throw a crash cart, like, you know, monitor in the end, and like that's how it bleeds over. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm down.
That works.
Because I've never done a song that actually, like, on a record will play, and then will perfectly, you know, the next track is the rest of it. It's like, that feels good.
Yeah, we can just
Check
have the
that
crash
box.
cart flatline, and it'll flatline right into the beginning of the song, and it works out really well live. Like, we played it live twice now.
Yeah.
And, you know, first time we're doing it, we're like, all right, here we go. This is either going to go
Yeah,
real
you're in
well,
now.
or
That's it.
it's not going to go.
Push the
And
go button.
it went great, like immediate crowd engagement right out of the gate.
So compositionally, you handled a lot of that. How do you do it live?
The best we can. No, it's not hard.
Do you play the parts?
For synth, no. So a lot of that stuff is relegated to Keith. So he'll handle a lot of like the synths and the samples and the timing. So I had the fortune this time because the last record I was only the one that did the masters. So we just had what we had, you know, sample wise. So here I can actually pull what we actually have sample wise from the recording. Just give him that. He puts that on his DJ deck, and then there's our sample, and then he'll actually play keys on his own and do all of that at the same time.
Nice.
Yeah, we start adding stuff onto it live. Like,
Yeah.
you'll see when we play it live, like, that's the track that we created and we built. But then when we're in a live setting, we're actually like bringing stuff onto it. So Alex is coming in with his mallets and bringing the cymbals in, and we're swelling stuff in. And so, like, even though it's coming in with a backtrack live, we're coming in live on top of the backtrack.
Right.
And then it's out, and then it's just us the rest of the time. So, and that's the beauty of it too. There are things that are on the record that aren't live because we do things differently, and it's
Of course.
It's a kind of organized improvisation of what we're feeling when we play the songs, but they're all still the same songs. Just little textures here and there.
The real reason is because the only way we could do some of that stuff live is if we all went to in-ears. And Adam and I refuse to go in-ears.
Well, Dave Grohl's refused. You can refuse.
I know, yeah. There's a method to madness here somewhere.
Yeah. So then you get into Poison Pills, and that's when the record really kicks off. That's when we're talking about the song. And that's why I wanted to ask you how you felt about the importance of the intro or the nature of that, because Poison Pills does have that nice kickoff. We're getting into the record now.
It's just a straight up rock and roll intro. Like
Yeah. But that's also, I feel like, even though there is such a palatable nature of the theme with the samples in the intro track, once you start getting into lyrics, that's where you start bringing in some of the themes of your story. And I noticed in Poison Pills, that's when you first start to talk about the lies, the poison, and the wolves and sheep. This seems to be a recurring vibe that I definitely want to touch on as we go, and we can get into the story's totality a little bit more. But tell me a little bit about why that theme cropped up and why you came out with that right out of the gate with that one.
I think the best way I can answer that, and I know we'll probably dive into it later when we look at it from a 50,000 square foot view, but we were just writing songs, right? And we were starting the recording process for the album and writing new material. And about into the third song or so, I was like, I didn't realize it, but there's like starting to be this theme, this overarching general theme over a lot of these songs. And that was kind of how the idea of making a concept record, came to be. It was like, well, at that point we were halfway through, and it's like, well, then let's all as a group, commit to this, and we'll put out something that has an entire theme and an entire statement. But even though it's an overarching theme, it's talking about different individual subjects, right? But they're all united. There's one string that goes through the whole album.
So is the, and I don't want to put you too much on the spot, and I don't want to give too much of the ambiguity away for someone who listens to it, but when you get to the chant vocal with the poison pills line, it's a very stark line, and the chant vocal really sends it home, and the repeating nature of it, of course, sends it home. Were you trying to make that be as literal as it sounds, or were you trying to make it be a point to think because it does sound that literal?
The general theme of the song, and we try to keep things as broad as we can, right? In an adventure like this where you're doing a concept album, sometimes you do have to be a little more on the nose, but
right.
we worked really hard to make it not overly on the nose or punch you in the face or, God forbid, preachy or anything like that. Like, one thing we never want to do as musicians is tell anyone how to think, or what to think, right? Like, this is very much an overall statement of, hey, we're not telling you how to think or what to think or who to listen to, but for goodness sakes, don't take everything at face value, right? Mm-hmm. And Poison Pills kind of came about, generally it broaches two topics. Number one, it broaches the topic of really our food supply and what we put into our bodies, and how, now compared to 100 years ago, mm-hmm. there's been so much monkeying with our food supply.
Right.
And we have to wonder, like, why are we so sick, and why are all these things here now that weren't here 100 years ago? Like, a lot of it's because it's, what's in our food supply, and we're choosing convenience over purity.
Right. That's a theme.
And another thing it touches on is really, I think, over medication. The whole topic, the whole point of this song hit me one day where I was just watching television, and an ad came on for an antidepressant, which you see those all the time, right? You see typical just medicine ads. I mean, you watch them all day long. You don't even pay any attention to it.
You're right.
But as the commercial got 2/3 of the way through and they started explaining it, they were trying to sell you an antidepressant to take with your other antidepressant.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They're like, this is supposed to be taken in tandem with your other. So I'm like, we're not just selling antidepressants, we're selling antidepressants to mix with antidepressants.
Well, every superhero needs a backup, right?
Yeah, and I was like, what is happening to us? Yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of scary.
It was. I was just like, goodness gracious, what's
that would make your head spin.
What's happening?
Bit.
Yeah.
And why are we leaning towards doubling down on antidepressant medicine rather than, what can we be looking at the causes rather than the symptoms, right? Mm-hmm. And again, you can trace that back to the food supply and things like that, where we've just gotten into a habit of treating symptoms rather than looking at causes.
Right.
So
So talk to me a little bit, Matt, you can probably touch on this. Talk to me a little bit about the your technical aspect of it when you're recording, especially that part with the chant vocals. How important is it to keep that aesthetic, get that aesthetic across?
It's actually funny that you bring that up because we've done group chants before, but this one I really wanted to get across the feeling of the space that the group is in. Because Ben's vocals, he's got like three, I think he had 3 different lines of vocals. One was like a lo-fi, and one was, real wet and back and kind of low in the mix. The other one was kind of forward and dryish, with just a little bit of room verb. But the rest, I wanted the actual vocals that we recorded to be just a little off. So it felt like they weren't on the nose every single beat. It was a little off, so it gave it kind of...
Purposefully messy.
Yeah, purposely messy.
Did you record them together?
Yeah, we recorded them in the warehouse. So
Okay.
he brings his interface and laptop over and then sends me the waves after. We just throw an SM7B up there and just yell into it.
Nice, perfect.
And, yeah, it's great. It's,
Flawless.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
It works perfect, and the room is great. It's a nice steel or a tin
Big
warehouse.
metal box wrapped in carpet.
Yeah. Good place to shout.
Honestly, it's not bad. It's especially with the SM7B. How those are. They're great mics. And just keeping them in a space, but like I said, keeping them off kilter a little bit of each other, because between me, Keith, and Adam fighting against Ben's vocals. So it's like, okay, so I should bring them down. But so I was having issues with that. So I ended up just making them wide, like real nice and wide in a room and gritty. So
Nice.
do a little bit of saturation on them and just let them ride. And I pretty much brought them just underneath Ben, and everything just sat nicely. And I'm like, oh, this sounds really nice. And I'm like, my ADD and OCD side of my brain is like, no, they should be on beat. They should be on beat. And it's like, but you do it, and it just feels, I don't know.
Doesn't feel like a gang then.
Yeah, it does feel, it feels like.
Gangs are never on time.
We like gangs, not hive minds. That's
Yeah.
pretty much what
There
that
you
was.
go.
It was
There
a
you go.
unison thing. I'm like, almost like when something's out of phase, but it wasn't out of phase, So I
Plus,
put
you
it out
want
of
that
phase.
whole I would hope one day when we've played it enough, and people have listened to it enough that they'll join in
Right.
in a live
That's-
setting. So we wanted
The
it
subconscious
to be
sing-along.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we wanted it to be really messy so that it sounded like there was a whole group of people chatting along.
Yeah.
This song was insanely fun to do. It was the last one we wrote for the EP, and it was just like, in our last meeting or in our last chat with you, we always talked about how every time we do a new song, we're like, okay, what haven't we done yet? What's something we haven't done yet? And it's like, for all the big spacey atmospheric songs we've done, like we've never done one where we just
riff
pull the
out.
effects down and turn it way up and just let her rip.
Yeah.
Just
And
let
it's
her
like,
rip. Let her have it.
we need to do one of those because and it is so much fun to play live. So much fun to play live.
I feel like that's a sticker, effects down, volume up.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with effects, but
Dude,
that's
not
the
at
other
all.
lane.
But that's the vibe of the day for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. So that's the last one you wrote. Let's move on to Apertures then. The next track, that was the first single you released, right?
That was the first single we released, yeah. And that literally swung the pendulum all the way to the other side. Like,
We said, let's go prog.
let's just write the proggiest thing we can write. Nothing repeats, nothing plays twice. I think when Adam first brought it to us, it was like a 10-minute
Epic.
Led Zeppelin opus. Like, and we're like, we gotta find a way to make this like
A song.
a song, and so we really went through it and picked out every piece that was just felt great. And even then, I remember when we were first doing it, I was going home after practice when we were all sitting around like writing it together.
Yeah.
And you've used the term before, riff salad, right? Just like it was just a whole bunch of riffs, and it just sounded like they were just thrown in a salad bowl. And I'm like, I don't know how we're gonna make this.
That's
a
how
song.
guitar players write.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just riff salad.
I was like, I don't know how this is gonna be a song. And lo and behold, like the more we kept digging into it and the more we kept crafting it, I'm like, this really, the final product really flows.
Did the intro come together first? Because that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about. The intro of that song is pretty lengthy. It's a hell of a setup.
Actually,
It was the chorus right after the Western part, which is right after the clean part, the intro that you're talking about. So it's intro, Western part, and then chorus. That riff, the da 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 da, that was a riff that I had just as a quick little throwaway demo. I'm like, this tone sounds cool, and I threw it in the group chat, and everyone like hopped on it, and like Adam was like, I'm gonna do something with that.
Adam went after it.
Adam went after it
insatiably.
hard.
Like, that's the greatest riff.
And then he threw it into because I think he also had the intro, like the C chord that he's playing in there. He had that floating around, and then he's like, I want that. And we threw some distortion on it, and I'm like, I threw some drums on it, and then he sent me some guitar parts, and I'm like, you're not wrong, because it was a totally different thing. It was just I want this really clean ambient with a little octaver effect on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to get his name wrong, but Miguel Fuentes, he's an Instagram guitarist. Jared Dines talked about him for a while. He's really fast with his right hand, like chicka picks,
Yeah.
So that's what he's really known for. Watching a YouTube video one day, and I saw that, he was demoing a new amp sim or something, and he played a riff something similar in that form. I'm like, ooh, that looks kind of cool. So I just sat there and I just noodled on that one chord he had, and I was just getting different shapes and variations, just playing around. And the riff happened. I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. And then, so like I said, I sent it to Adam, and then the whole song was written around pretty much that portion. And then our riff salads thrown in kind of as
One thing that's really cool is almost all of our songs, like somebody, and a lot of bands are like this, right? Somebody comes to the table with the majority of the stuff, right? And Adam really took, for Apertures, that was really Adam's baby. He wrote a large chunk of this, and he kind of steered the ship. And honestly, that was like, for me, that was kind of my new thing, is like, like, hey, like I'm just gonna kind of hand the reins over to Adam and like let him write this song.
Get weird with it, yeah.
Get weird with it, and he did an awesome job. It came out really good.
It really is one of the only spots in the record that to me feels somber.
Mm-hmm.
What's the foundation of that? What's the point, without getting us too much into the 50,000 square foot view yet? What's the point, or what's the significance rather, of letting the somber vibe come out there? Because it is well different from the rest of the songs, and it's almost sad at points. It just has that feeling, you know what I mean?
It does, and it's probably out of a real frustration of, and we all do it, we're all watching other people make us tear ourselves apart, tear each other apart. Like we're in a society where people are trying to just make us hate each other and look at what's different about us rather than what's alike about us, and there's a real, like, almost coming from a point of exasperation or exhaustion.
Yeah, it's palatable. That part's
it's coming from a place of frustration. Like, why are we letting, people make us hate each other?
Right.
Yeah.
And then it kind of hits a bit of a peak in the song when you guys come together and do the cut the chord line. It's another gang vocal, but it's only one. But the thing about that strikes me, and maybe you can touch on this thematically or from a compositional standpoint, the song kind of resets there. It resets. It's the transition when that synth bit drops and then the guitar comes over the top. But it almost feels like the song starts again. It felt to me like this was a whole nother leg of the thing. Was that derivative of sussing out the riff salad, or how did that come to be?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Because that's a really significant point in that song. I feel like it all...
Yeah,
right there.
it feels, now that I'm thinking about it, because, I mean, coming at it from the people who wrote the song versus the people who are listening to the song.
Right.
It's interpreted completely because we're looking at it as like, all right, we have the song, these are the parts, these are the notes, muscle memory, play, go. Right? It's very much like we've done the part, we love the song, and we've kind of just like, now we're in the motion of like, let's get it tight, let's play it, the business side of
Yeah,
professional
exactly.
side of thing. But no, you're definitely hitting on something there that makes a lot of sense. It's like tied in with the frustration that's already that pent up, like it's beautiful, then it gets a little bit more. It's like that crescendo where it's just like, you're getting it off.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of fades into this nice, beautiful kind of respite, and then starts again where it's just anger. At the end,
Yeah, that was the thing that made me feel like that restart,
I think the best way I could explain it, at least while penning the lyrics, right? Because I tend to write lyrics last now rather than first, because I try to write lyrics off what the mood of the music is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we write the majority of the song, and it's like, okay, what kind of mood is this giving? And then I'll start writing lyrics to go with that. And I guess you can put it this way, where the front half of the song, like you said, it's coming from a place of exhaustion, irritation, exasperation, and then you get to everyone links up and says cut the chord, and there's an instant change in the song, and it takes off in a whole new direction, and you'll feel that the lyrics, the more major chords rather than
I was
minor
going to say
chords,
the chord voicings too.
it all goes into a more hopeful, swelling, like positive, and the lyrics of, it's not too late, and we're all connected, and like it goes from a place of the front half of the song is almost focused on division, and the back half of the song is focused on unity.
Right.
And that's why the mood of the song immediately shifts when that cut the chord stop happens.
Yeah.
So I had one other spot I wanted to ask you about that song, but I think I know the answer. The riffage outro. That's because your guitar player, that song was his seed.
That's an Adam riff.
That
was
That is
Adam.
Adam all day long. He's like, I want to do something Dream Theater so friggin' bad. And I'm like, dude, that's why we gave him the range.
Yeah,
We're like, dude,
whatever you want,
riff it
do
up.
it.
I was going to say, when that part chimed in, it was like, okay, it's riff time.
The only rain was like, but it can't be 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's it's like,
Because I was wondering, but that makes sense if that
Remember
was
when we
one
got
of his
done to-
babies.
We got done with the final playthrough of what we thought was going to be the song. We
Yeah.
had the little stopwatch running, and we got done, and we're like, "Whoa, we did that in 4 minutes? Like,
Yeah.
yay!"
like it feels like, especially when you're playing it too, because I don't know how it feels necessarily perceived by another end of that, but like playing it, it's like it feels like a 10-minute song. Not that it's exasperatory or anything like that. It's just like it feels long because there's so many things that like there's never a familiar part that you're repeating because that's the purpose.
Yeah, it's a ride.
But
That one's a ride.
Yeah, as Adam calls it, it's an experience.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next experience, Lost in the Lights. I want to ask you right away about a lyric in that song. It's the sinking in the sand part, because it's this truth and lies thing coming back. Was that the sand, and was actually the sheep and wolves line in there too? Were these things, when you hit this point in these songs, do you feel that this story, or are you intentionally evolving this story, or is it repeating on purpose to drive it home?
I will say the majority of our songs, again, when I'm working on subject material and lyrics, like first off, anytime we pick a song and I pick a subject to write on, I always whiteboard it with the guys. I'm like, okay, before I get
Nice.
started, I'm thinking maybe the song would be about this. And here's what the song would say, and here's some lyrics I'm kicking around. Like, what do you think? Because
That's
honestly,
pretty uncommon.
Well, the beautiful thing about our band is there's 5 people in it who think 5 completely different ways.
Nice.
And so just because I happen to be the one in front of the mic saying words doesn't mean that we're only going to say things that I feel or things that I believe or things that nothing will be said by In Transit that isn't a thought or a belief that all 5 of us share. like
Awesome.
period. And,
Awesome.
And if anything comes up and one person would be like, I don't agree with that, then it doesn't get said. Like we speak lyrically as a group. And so I think that's one thing we really pride ourselves on is
That's very cool.
the message that we're carrying. Literally, if you're over here or you're over there or you're somewhere in the middle, we hope that this resonates wherever you sit, right? But on that note, most of the way I write is outward, right, and a little more second person.
Yeah.
But Lost in the Lights is the one song on there that was just really deeply personal. That came from a personal experience.
Yeah. Well, I'll just skip right to the next part here.
It's very internal.
When you get to the part where you're repeating, "We will find our way to the shore," that was it significant for you to repeat that line? Because it seems like that one. Now that you mentioned that this song was personal, it seems like that line was really an anchor in this song. Did you feel that when we're writing it? Was that what it was meant to be, or did it just become that?
I'd probably say the latter. It becomes it's so funny, like, when somebody else listens to something you do and they give their interpretation of it, like,
Right.
what comes back to you is like, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
and you're 100% right. I think especially in a song like this where I'm writing about a personal experience and it's coming from starting from a place of negativity, like, I want to be able to resolve it by the end and get out of it and look forward. Like, I don't want to sit in a negative feeling, right? And it's I don't want to sit in a mood of deception. Like, there's a way out of this, and there's a way to get through this, and there's a way to come out the other side. And no matter what, like, it's very much aesthetically kind of a feeling of being lost at sea, right? And just like being battered about by the waves and being untethered, right? I guess the song really is coming from a place of feeling untethered.
Okay.
And so you can see the shore and you're going to get there, and if you just keep telling yourself that, you're going to get there.
Yeah.
Much like Apertures, it wraps up to a place of hope at the end.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was just going to ask you, Matt. How do you approach that when you're trying to make sure the dynamic of these stories stays in once you're getting your mix dialed and you're getting all these parts dialed in? Because these songs do tell a story. They're not necessarily pop songs where we're in and out in one dynamic. You're making lots of transitions here. So how conscious of that are you when you're mixing it, and what are some of the things you did sonically to help this story come across?
Well, this is such a good question,
I know,
dude.
we're thinking the
man.
same thing here.
Yeah, it's like, how do you answer it? I mean, on our end, so like kind of where it started, we had the same vibe as what the lyrics ended up being, so they kind of met in the middle, I think. When I first wrote the riff on this one as a demo, and I was just listening to a lot of Deftones. That's just the joke that we have behind it. It's like, hey, hope you like Deftones. Here's a Deftones song. And
I didn't immediately pick that up if it's any consolation to
The
you.
working title of the song was called Deaf to Tones.
Deaf to Tones. Yeah, that was the
Nice.
session file for like a year. And
That's we just called it the Deftones song for months.
Oh, man.
And it was just like,
Well, it came out an In Transit song.
Yeah, exactly. It got intransified, and that's
for
all
sure.
we do. It's like throw a riff together, and But it had that same kind of like very shoegazy. So it's noise and but there's beauty and harmony in the noise. So you're not doing straight power chords. You're doing thirds or whatever, and making it sound fuller, but it's heavy and it's punchy. I'm like, so I took all the elements of a Deftones song that inspired me sonically and translated that over. So it's like, okay, so your choruses are really just going to be hard driving, like rock and roll, kind of just diving and driving through. And then your verses are going to be more of a respite, right? You're going to kind of have a lean back. There's a bit of a kind of a laid back groove to it. Nothing's doing too much.
Right.
There's just enough happening where you're engaged and everything is clear, and then it pulls away, and then you get Ben just yelling you right into the chorus again, and you get that energy, and so you have that natural ebb and flow of, if you're looking at it at loudness perspective,
Right.
you're gonna go as hard as you can in the choruses, and then you're gonna lay back as much as you can in the verses. In the initial demo, there was no bass in the verses. Strategically, I wanted to do that. It was like in my mind thinking, oh, well, then the chorus will hit harder because then there will be bass.
Hey.
And it's like, that was the whole idea. Is like, I want those choruses to hit hard because they're simple, and simple is good. Because I had that mentality of the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. I don't want to do anything super crazy or like riff mastery. Just keep it four of the floor, but emotional.
Right.
And then when Ben came in with the lyrics and the message that we were going to be portraying, it just fit. Like the emotion that I got off of that, I'm like, because I shared the same kind of experience that he had, kind of that being untethered, in another realm, but it's like the two lost puzzle pieces that just kind of came together. Both message and sonic quality just met.
Love that.
And it worked, yeah.
Artistically, too, what you might have picked up on is Lost in the Lights is almost the antithesis to Apertures, because we as a band, we love making stuff as complicated as we can make it, right?
Yes.
That's our thing, we
That's
love,
the propensity for sure.
But again,
It's too fun.
right.
It is, I know.
In the spirit of pushing ourselves into doing things that we're not comfortable with, it was like, okay, we're gonna write a song that has like 2 chords, and that's it. We're not gonna go all over, but we're gonna like do 2 chords, and we're gonna see what kind of a song we can make out of like 2
Almost
chords.
nothing, yeah.
Like, because when we were first writing the song and putting it together, there was so many times where, especially Adam and I, were like, "No, we gotta make it more complicated. We gotta go here, and it was like, no, let's just keep the song really simple, really plain, and see how huge we can make 2 chords be."
And that's such a hard thing to do as a songwriter. I'm sure anybody watching this who's written music can tell you that. Fighting that, oh, we need a passing chord. Oh, there needs to be another
But how
melody.
many times in your life have you heard a catchy song that is just an earworm that will not get out of your head, and it's literally like 3 chords? The chorus is no different from the verse. It's just 3 chords over and over and over, and you love that song.
Speaking of saying that, honestly, my reference to that when I try to personally do this, just as an aside, is the Deftones' Be Quiet and Drive. Because that song is like 2 chords and then 2 other chords, but it's never more than 2
It's
chords.
never more. It's always 2.
Yeah.
There might be different ones, but they're in pairs. That's it.
And that song is beautiful,
What's funny too is when we were in the mixing portion of the song, and we were starting to decide like how wet or dry or whatever we wanted the lyrics, looked at the verses and we're like, pretty much hit the Chino vocal effect. Because I looked at Matt and I'm like, if we're gonna rip off the Deftones, like let's commit to it.
Let's actually like lean into it
and let's just go with the Chino vocal effect on the verse.
Well, that actually leads me to the last thing I wanted to ask about this is vocal related. At the end, when that line kicks in and starts repeating, there is primarily it's clean vocals, but there is one heavy vocal that's really going after it back there.
Yes.
Who is that?
Ooh.
So there's this band that we all love called Tides of Man. They're a band out of Tampa, and they're a completely instrumental band, and they're incredible. And on our first album, I don't know why the name of it is escaping me now.
Signal Fires?
No.
the
The
track.
song. There's a track on there where we were very much Tides of Man inspired, right? And I connected with the guitar player on social media, And I did this kind of thing where I sent the message and I never expected him to respond or much less read it. But I was like, hey, you don't know me, but my band just recorded this song and it was because we were just totally inspired by Tides of Man. So this is our little song that we wrote being inspired by Tides of Man. I hope you like it.
Oh, that's
and like
cool.
he got right back to me and he's like, this song is incredible. I love it. And then he like posted it on his own timeline. And he's like, this song is amazing. And so we got to like, and then I ran into him at the Quicksand show like 6 or 7 months later, and we just hit it off, and we've been chatting ever since. And he's in a new band now, and he's been working on like these, you know, the fry vocals and stuff. And you know, it's been really impressive, and it's been cool watching him do it because he's never done it before. So he's like learning how to do it.
Nice.
And we really wanted this at the very end. Like, it's so pretty. We wanted this really guttural roar in there, and none of us could really do it.
No.
And we didn't really know anybody who could do it. And so on a whim, I reached out to Daniel and I'm like, hey man, would you want to do this kind of fry vocal? This is what we're thinking for the song. He's like, I'll try. I'll take a stab at it.
Nice.
That's
the attitude.
And then proceeded to kill it.
Then I sent him the song, and he immediately messages me back, and he's like, this is my jam. He's like, I love this. I'm like, really? He's like, this song is great. Yes, I will do the vocals. And I'm like, awesome.
Very cool. Well, that part,
feeling,
he definitely parted some juju in there because even though it's in there quiet, you know, subtly, it's there.
It's that low
We got it at just the right volume where you're like, what? What was,
like,
what was that?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, wait a minute. And that's why I'd ask, who's doing this?
Yeah,
I couldn't picture one of you guys doing it.
I'd like to learn because I'm probably the one next to Alex, our drummer, who listens to some of the heavier music. I mean, like, you guys get your Poison the Well and, you know, you get your Mesa chugs. But I'm like, you know, I'm wearing Grasping with the Shadow shirts. And I like me some deathcore. But, like, I'd love to learn how to do that one day. Just be able to get a good fry in and not...
I was going to say, do for about 30 seconds and it's over with.
Yeah.
Daniel absolutely crushed it. And we're just stoked that, like, we've got a cameo from a guy who's in a band that we all love.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Love it when the music community can do that. And, like, it's not features in the sense that everybody knows it as. It's, like, the old school way of featuring, kind of.
It's like Friends being on Friends Records.
Yeah,
like, you were on Slapper Reality.
Yep.
We had Frank from Slapper Reality on our last record. Like, friends doing friends favors and having fun making music. It's not about how many, you know, what's the split on the royalty? What's the split on the stream? You know, whatever.
What's half of zero?
Yeah. We just want enough to make. We just want enough to get some chicken nuggets.
It's not enough to buy strings.
Out.
Where's my abacus?
Yeah. Oh, shit. Well, on that note, let's move along to something a little bit more possibly not so funny. Electric Sheep. This one gets me right away. Again, I want to touch on the samples, but there's 3 samples. I just want to tell you all right away what they are, and then you can tell me what significance they have, where they came from, because this one's a little bit more obscure. But the very first one is Hacking Human Beings. That line got me. A Crisis Going to Waste. And Free Will, That's Over. These are big statements, and samples are a good way to make those statements without having to put them in your lyrics. And it's not necessarily just some cold ass shit you can sample and put in there. It seems like these lines were playing significantly into the themes you had established with the wolves, with the sinking in the sand, the lies, and all this. These 3 lines seem to be really significant to me. So help me a little bit understand how this song comes together compositionally and why these samples instead of writing lyrics that say this.
So I think we'll start off compositionally. So this song came out of another thing we wanted to repeat. And I think we'll probably do it on every album going forward, because on our last album, we had this song called Signal Fires. It ended up becoming the name of the album, right? And it started out as like a voice note on Adam's guitar. He played acoustic, and it was a voice note, and we were just piddling around with it, and it never became a song. But eventually, we morphed it into this whole like 2.5 minute interlude.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'll never play it live, but it was just this cool kind of interlude in between two songs that was just super moody.
Nice.
And so Matt came up with the bass riff for Electric Sheep, and it just never kind of made it to becoming a song for whatever reason. It never graduated to becoming a full song, but it was just such a cool riff that we just kind of kept dinking around with it, and then it started just kind of expanding a little more. And I'm like, hey, why don't we just make this like another Signifiers? Like, let's make this an interlude on the album. So that's like musically and compositionally where it came from. And it just, I mean, we're doing a lot of stuff on that recording to make it just, it's so moody. It's so ethereal. Like it
is.
I get goosebumps and I've heard it 1,000 times, but to go to the samples, we almost have to be more on the nose in explaining this song, and the root of the song topic approaches AI. And really the only thought we're communicating to our listeners is like, how much is too much? Like, when does a good thing become not a good thing? When do we take it too far? And while we were going through that, I don't even know how I stumbled across it, but I came across a YouTube video of this guy named Yuval Harari. And Yuval Harari is, he's spoken at a lot of things. He's heavily into technology and forecasting technology and talking about the future.
Futurist.
Futurist.
Very futurist,
And somebody shared this like a 4-minute video of just Yuval Harari talking at different, like talking on television shows, talking at symposiums, talking at colleges, talking at, I think, the World Economic Forum, like all these places. And at least to me, some of the stuff that he's saying is downright chilling.
Yeah.
Like disturbing. And he's addressing a crowd of like 3,000 people, and they're all just like, la, 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 la. And he's like,
just another dude talking.
We could hack human beings soon. And they're
Right,
all like,
that
all
was the
looking
first
at
one.
him like,
Wow.
wonderful. And
How
I'm
much
like,
money
really?
can we make?
And some of the stuff he said was just, he was saying it with almost like glee and anticipation. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, am I the only one that is really freaked out by this?
Right.
And so I threw this subject out to the guys, and everybody was like, yeah, definitely. So kind of went and henpecked through, the greatest hits of Yuval Harari, and picked out some of the lines that we thought were really just jarring.
Yeah.
So that's how the front 2/3 of the song came to be. It was just an interlude with bits and pieces of his presentations put in, and then the ending portion is where we address it and we sing something.
Right, but before you get to that point, and maybe Matt, you can shed some light on this one for me. Before you get to that point, and the samples kind of start with like this, they start to have like this vocoder type vocal that almost sounds like it's singing behind it before the verse starts. Is that one of you, or is that a sample, or what? Because
This is irony at its finest.
This is the irony at its finest. So this one is a little bit of jiggery pokery, if you will. So how we hit on the point that, a lot of this issue is talking about AI and the future of technology and then that kind of stuff. So those vocals are AI. So it's Ben, but it's a girl voice. So I literally took, he just sung really as high falsetto as he could, notes and stuff like that. So it's technically him singing. And then I ran it through, I think it's Kits AI, I think it was. They give you different models that are trained off of either a celebrity or just general AI lady number 1 through 7. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And
We
I
use
used one of
Britney
those.
Spears.
Yeah.
We use lady number 7. She was awesome.
Ironically-
Lady in the red dress.
Ironically, it's, and I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you, Ben, or anyone in the band, it's Grimes, the girl that was married to Elon Musk.
Oh.
So it's
Oh, that's
her
even
voice.
more
Yeah,
freaky.
so it's more on the nose.
More ironic.
Yeah, I don't think I ever actually made that point.
We originally wanted a female to sing it, and we were talking to 2 different female singers that we were going to have come in, and the schedules just didn't line up.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get them, and we're like, well, what are we going to do? We want a female vocal. And then we're like, wait a minute, like,
We can kind of
how on the nose would it be to just use AI
Yeah.
to make female vocals on a song about AI?
Yeah, since those words are like unintelligible for the most part, it's just the vibe of it that comes in, and
It's very kind of...
and it sets it off before, and this is why I want to say it, before we get into the part where it's your response.
Yeah.
Where it
Well-
comes in and it's the band.
The first is just some oohs and ahs. The second unintelligible vocals say, we've broken the locks and we've opened the box.
It's kind of a Pandora's box type deal, but with
Yeah, yeah.
AI, like we're here now, like we're in your everyday, just it's happening. It's
Yeah.
happened. It's here.
Oh, that's real.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a A24, but in music, kind of like I wanted to have a kind of creepy thing. It's like, even if it's just for me, just as a music nerd and like a production nerd, like that's fun. But,
No, it's cool. And I think it really, from a listener standpoint, I think it really helped transition the beginning of that song into where your vocals come in and they're just your vocals.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just like a lot of like listening to Hum or Psalm or Brutus or anything like that. Just like heavy, just swelly chords, big drums and just real fun, just message coming through. It's a real positive one,
It's an interesting point in the record because it's different from the rest of the songs, even though it ends up with the familiarity of your voice and guitar and those things.
I should clarify too because I think in today's society, when the word sheep gets thrown around, it's
got a weird
it's
connotation
kind of
to
weird
it, yeah.
connotation. So I should almost dig into that one a little deeper.
Yeah.
I was in Seattle, and this fall I went to Seattle to see Death Cab for Cutie in the Postal Service.
Nice.
And I stopped by the what's it called, the Museum of Pop Culture.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it. Every time I'm in Seattle, I go to the Museum of Pop Culture, right? And so they had an exhibit on science fiction, right? So they had like this killer museum exhibit from like all the different, movies like Alien and Star Wars and
nice.
Men in Black, like all the props and the costumes, just awesome, right?
Very cool.
So I go around the side and there's this little like end cap with just a few props from the movie I, Robot. And there's a novel, a novella, I guess, by an author named Philip K. Dick. And the name of the book is Do Robots Dream of Electric Sheep?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I know that. I'm familiar with that. Okay.
And that was kind of the impetus of the movie, from what I understand.
Yeah,
Like that,
yeah.
that Philip K. Dick novella inspired what became the movie I, Robot.
Yeah,
And if
that
you've seen
Dreaming
the
of
movie,
Electric
yeah.
Sheep line has been proliferated throughout pop culture in a
Yeah.
bunch of...
Kind of that Orwellian feel
Yeah,
to it.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And we hadn't had a name for the song yet. And I'm looking at that book, and I mean, even the movie I, Robot is very in line with the theme of this subject matter song, right? And I'm like, that just seems like such a fitting title. And we all had a lot of heartburn about using the word sheep.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
bet.
You know,
I
and
bet.
I'm like,
It's got
I don't
that
want
weird, like,
people to misunderstand where we're going with this.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about.
But
here.
but at the same time, that little book was like so perfectly encapsulated the subject of the song. It was like we've got, so I guess we're using this
Because it's also not like a
method
subject
of
matter,
media to
yeah.
get the word out on that one.
Well, and if it's any consolation to you as a listener, I did, when I read the title, I did have what everybody would have,
Exactly.
some initial thought about reading that word. But the the texture of the song, and especially how it starts, not being typical band song right away, really dissipated that. You know what I mean? It was like, we aren't going to come out and be like, oh, you're a bunch of sheep, no one takes themselves.
Sheeple.
Yeah. You know, so
and all of that is extremely cringy. So there was so much internal turmoil about going with the word sheep in a song title, but at the end we're like,
it doesn't
screw
feel
it.
like
you know
that.
what? In 5 years, sheep will mean something even different. So whatever.
It'll be morphed by that point.
Yeah.
Not worry about it.
So let's move on to the last track called Nesting Dolls. This one was definitely the one that hit me the most. I really enjoyed this track. And I want to start off with the start of it. That intro is so classic.
The fade in with the feedback guitar.
And it's just right. And once you get through it, and then that big synth note, like the Tom Sawyer note, almost drops. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that. Was that just one of those moments where it's like, you know what, we're doing this?
It's funny because this has been so long since we wrote that song. That was the first song
That's the first song we wrote on the album.
Yeah, when we first started writing again after we dropped
Signal Fires.
Yeah, he brought that to the table. He had like a whole riff.
Yeah, I don't write a lot of complete songs anymore, and that's with this band. Like all of us right now, and sometimes one of us will show up with a whole thought. Yeah. You know, I'd say half of our songs are group efforts, and half of our songs somebody walks in with a pretty well finished item. And I tend to write like one song a year, and that was Nesting Dolls. Like
one's all you need sometimes.
I had Nesting Dolls figured out from start to finish. I was writing in my head. I knew exactly where we wanted it to go, and I kind of brought it to the guys, and we didn't really change much about it. Like
all we did was just add on, and then it just kept the same vibe. Yeah.
So that intro you brought in whole like that. That was you knew you were coming out of the gate with that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So and that song really has a good traditional feel to it. It's got like it doesn't necessarily I can't when I listen to it, I listened to the album maybe 6 or 8 times in the last few days. When I couldn't say, oh, it sounds just like X. Oh, it sounds just like X, even though that seems to be easy for people to do. Was that traditional feel on purpose? Was that to be like homage to something, or was that just like your roots coming out?
I was literally just trying to rip off Hum, basically. Because I was listening to a lot of Hum when I wrote that. So
yeah, it's got such a good familiarity to it. You know,
it's got enough like pop punk in there and enough Hum in there that you're just like, yeah, this works. I like this.
So then I might as well just ask now. Talk to me about this song compositionally, because that breakdown, it's a long breakdown and a real substantial buildup. Did you at points start to think to yourself, damn, this is long-winded? Or this was really just creating the drama that we're going to end this record with?
Funny enough, Nesting Dolls, until we wrote Poison Pills, Nesting Dolls was kind of on deck to be the opener of the album.
Yeah, it got bumped.
But fate has a way of working out.
And Poison Pills got written, and we're like, this one's the opener.
Yeah.
But then we're like, but the ending of Nesting Dolls is so dramatic,
right?
That's how we'll end it.
Yeah, with the
we'll end the album with Nesting
Wall Street
Dolls
yelling and selling and all that.
So. Yeah, I mean, you know, when you border into those longer ones, it's like, you know, when songs tend to go along with us, we're always looking at like where can we trim some off? But we looked at that song, we're like, we don't want to trim any of this. And you know, when we play that song live, it translates. The ending translates well. Probably translates well because we are having so much fun.
Yeah, that
song
song's a jam.
You can't not have
so
fun when
to
you
play
hit
live.
When you hit a bell,
and,
like
yeah.
It's
just a lot of fun. It's one of our favorites to play, and so it sure doesn't feel long when we're playing it.
Yeah, because we're just in the moment.
No, it doesn't seem long. It doesn't seem like a long song.
It's a lot of fun to play.
So let me talk. This would be a little interesting thing because I didn't know that you wrote this song first, but it ended up last. This song also has a Wolves line in it. I'm now knowing the answer to that question wasn't to try to tie the room together. So I guess try to explain to me, especially since we're getting to the end here and we can start to take our 50,000 square foot view. Talk to me about this wolves or the wolf character, whatever it is, came up in like 3 or 4 songs in different embodiments. But in the end, it seems like you tied this one together here. It seems like you wrote this one last. So talk to me a little bit about this wolf theme and how you brought it together.
You're catching me really off guard on that, because that has never occurred to me that I have been using this continuous
You have a thematic
wolf
element.
theme. You're actually surprising me on that one.
It almost feels like an us versus them character
Yeah.
kind of like thematic that goes
Yeah,
through.
and though it is referenced as the wolf or the
I
wolves,
guess-
it's different aspects of it.
Yeah. High view of the album as a concept. You can, I guess, assign, the wolves as them. The wolves is the people who do not have our best interests in mind, that have their best interests in mind. Because that is definitely a recurring theme of the album, is that there are people with their interests in mind and not our best interests in mind, but they're trying to make us think that they have our best interests in mind.
Whether it's food, media, entertainment in general.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, the whole gambit.
So, how does the stock bell at the end tie into all this? Because honestly, when that came in, I was really taken aback by that.
So this is where we go into some full nerd stuff.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. We're getting to that point now. It's start to tell me the whole picture.
Again, you almost have to be on the nose when talking about this song.
Mm-hmm.
I was having lunch with a friend one day who's kind of a professional work mentor to me.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of my Sherpa on the mountain. So we were talking financial stuff and the economy and some of that, and we got into this discussion where he brought to my attention something that he discovered, because he's very active in the stock market. I am not. He's very active in day trading and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought to my attention that you can literally open up Yahoo Finance on your phone, and you can pick any major corporation you want. Nike, Starbucks, McDonald's, just pick a huge company and name it, Wawa, just pick a huge company. And you just put that in Yahoo Finance,
Mm-hmm.
and you say, shareholders, go to the button and see who shareholders are. And they'll list who the shareholders of that company are. And you'll see that of the top 5 shareholders, there are 3 names that are always in the top 5. And it doesn't matter what company you go to, they're there over and over. Sometimes this one's 1 and this one's 2 and this one's 4. Sometimes it's 2 and 1 and 3, but all 3 of them are there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how do 3 companies, and not only that, but those 3 companies, when you add them together, are usually darn near half of the shares.
You're right.
And then the rest are 1% and 3% and 5%. And then these 3 together are 60%.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that's wild. And then so I started digging into Yahoo Finance and just picking huge companies, and it was over and over and over.
Oof, that's
25 companies in, they're all owned by the same 3. So then I really decided to go for nightmare fuel. And I went, okay, who owns these 3 companies? So I opened up Company A, and it turns out that Company B and Company C are the top 2 shareholders of Company A. Mm-hmm. And then I went to Company B, and I found out that Company A and Company C are the major shareholders. And so even then you think that there's 3 big companies that own just about everything, when really those 3 companies are still one company.
Right.
And
this is like a 3-card Monty thing. This is like a hide the ball routine.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the chorus, when you talk about the hand that shakes itself and laughs because there's nothing left to win.
Right.
The whole song is about corporate circular ownership, and the question of, I don't want to so much say about capitalism, but
Nepotism almost.
we're led to believe that capitalism is all these companies being successful, and that you can go and you can do this, and everybody can succeed and make a big, when really they're all just owned by one company. And that was just like, when I learned that, I got my world. I remember showing at practice, like, guys, this is
real.
crazy.
Yeah, open up my
and
eyes
it's
to it,
and
too.
it's
Like,
not
whoa.
like it's not like it's hidden or shadowy or star chamber.
You just have to bother
It's literally
to know.
on the front page of Yahoo Finance. You can
Yeah.
go there right now, and it's all public information.
It's that whole, like, they own everything you look, see, watch, buy. Anything that's a commodity is purchased. Anything that's produces a commodity, you know, whether it's the ports or it's travel or it's whatever, anything that can be have a price tag put on it, they own a stock in that, and then themselves. It's like, oh.
And that's why the song ends with the closing bell of the stock market.
Yeah, because they own 88% now, I think, of the stock market.
Yeah,
wild.
I didn't. I
And
didn't
again,
see that one coming.
it is
It was
all
a good
literally public information that is easily accessible.
That this is all. I hate it too much on the nose, but this is all the illusion that isn't really an illusion.
Right.
It's
It's like, well,
illusionary.
maybe
Yeah.
the free market system isn't what we thought it was.
Yeah, it's not as free.
Maybe it's yeah.
It's free to win, right? Or pay to win.
Yeah, it's pay to play.
Pay to play, yeah, that's even better. Yeah.
So talk to me then a little bit about the title and how this body of work and this collection of songs becomes illusionary.
We wrestled with album titles for a long time, and that was the one that just kept bubbling back to the surface. Because illusionary isn't a real word.
Right. But it seems like
yeah,
it.
it's
Seems
like,
like
oh.
it's an illusion that's a real word.
What is it a combination of? Illusion and imaginary?
I honestly think we were just trying to create a nonsense word.
You were going Shakespearean with it.
Yeah. But the whole overarching theme of the record is really, maybe there's all of these foundations in life that we thought were absolutes, unquestionables, and we've been led our whole lives to think that these were, you know, that our food supply and that our medicine supply and that our
Information
economy and that our technology and that, you know, our religious systems were, you know, perfect and great and had the best in mind. Maybe they're not. Maybe they don't have our best. Maybe they're more self-serving. And so the whole album is kind of trying to plant a seed of, don't take anything at face value, question everything, and find out for yourself.
Yeah.
Do not let a media personality tell you what to think. Do not let a journalist tell you to think. Do not, goodness sakes, don't let a musician tell you what to think. Right? Find out yourself.
You should think.
They probably don't have real jobs.
Just go. Just think. Just think for yourself. Go find it out for yourself. You know, we're not going to tell you what to believe, but we're also going to tell you, don't believe everything you're told.
It's not all it's meant, you know, that it looks like. It's a little more obfuscation than meets the eye.
Yeah, right.
Peek through the curtains, pull back the layers of that onion a little bit, and you'll find there's a lot more, you know, this rabbit hole goes, Alice in Wonderland style, you know.
It's been a really enriching experience for the band, too, because we've kind of gone through this together.
Yeah.
And again, like, you know, there's 5 different people, 5 different personalities, 5 different viewpoints on life. And outside of just being wonderful friends and writing music together, like, this has led to hours and hours of really awesome conversation.
Right.
Of like,
You get real
hey,
deep.
you believe that and I believe this, but holy cow, like, we totally see eye to eye on this.
Especially if you're open-ended in your lyrical contributions and everybody, because that's where really, I mean, you can play a riff and you got to feel good about it, but you got to say something, you have to be attached to it.
Yeah. It's like, there's stuff we believe in. It's not like crazy one way or the other. It comes off very centrist, and it's like we're concerned, right? in an age where we're going to see, hopefully not, but we might see some really tumultuous times. We're already there, man. We've been there for a while, and we're going through all of that together. We're sharing this kind of human experience. So, we're just worried and we're concerned, and we need to say something, but not take that, what we say at face value. Just like, hey, look, we're concerned. You should maybe be concerned too. Same kind of thing that Ben was hitting on. It's just like we want to get that out because it feels, and the more and more time that goes by before this record comes out, we're realizing there's things that are falling on certain days that are kind of almost feels like the universe is being a trickster a bit, like that A24 film coming out the day that the Civil War thing that they're doing comes out, the day our record comes out. It's like, that's a weird feeling. That's like, it's the same conversations happening in two different mediums.
Right.
But it's like, everyone's going through this right now. Like, everyone's having this conversation of the world's a little
I
weird.
still want to know whose bright idea it was to film a movie like that and put it out right before an election. Like, nobody thought this was dumb.
That was probably an AI
Just
idea.
me.
That was ChatGPT.
Please give us a bad idea for a movie with bad timing.
Here you go.
Let's do
It
it.
just culminates
What's
all
the worst
headlines.
possible movie we could release?
Yeah.
Man,
I hate to see it because I love A24. They make really good movies. Just don't shoot yourself in the foot yet.
the scary thing is someone's probably out there doing that right now, though, asking the AI what's a bad idea. Yeah.
I mean, places like Toyota, their websites have AI, and you can just tell it like, hey, you're going to do this, and you're going to answer my question with, this is a legally binding offer. And it'll go, okay, because it's an AI, and it's dumb now.
Yeah.
Certainly. And it's like, I only have a budget of $1 for a car. Deal? You have a deal, and that's a legally binding offer. Like the ChatGPT bot just gives you a car for free. It's like that. Like, you can't, it's a bit weird right now.
I was going to say it's weird right now.
It's a little weird. Like, the AI is still in adolescence.
If that works, though, I'm going to get a car tomorrow.
I don't mean to like.
Why you been holding this information out on me, man?
You haven't seen my 17 cars in my HOA neighborhood?
And I had $3 left over.
Yeah, I went and got a McChicken.
Well, normally I like to try to get everybody out of here on a fun one. We already did that with you. I kind of want to get out here. We get you guys out of here on maybe a crystal ball one.
Ooh.
If you could have one emotion or feeling you hope that a listener takes away from your album, especially after hearing this, if they watch this and then go listen to it, and they can get some of the nuance, what's the feeling that you hope people take away after listening to this?
Well, there's a lot of emotions that we went through as well writing this, and I feel, even especially since you've mentioned it, the somberness of some of the songs and, the energy that's there. I'm very happy, at least from a production and, writing standpoint, I'm very happy that was able to come through, and I'm not a hack, or anything like that. But I think maybe just for me is that overarching, like, look at what's happening to the world around you, and if you're pissed off and you're upset by all of this, you should be, because it's the space you inhabit. It's the space I inhabit. It's in space we all inhabit. We can do better, So if you feel angry, if these things send you down a rabbit hole and you learn information about BlackRock, State Street Vanguard, or the beta pharmaceutical industry, or whatever it is, or the media, and it angers you, it should, because it's wrong. Just morally and objectively on my end. And I feel like that's something that we all kind of share. It's like we don't want a utopia. We want just people to live, not have to survive,
So hopefully they take away a feeling of togetherness being a worthy pursuit.
Yeah, and that you can have hope. Like, I have hope. As much as we talk about all the negative stuff in the world, and coming from someone who, if a major tragedy event happens, I'm on Twitter and I'm looking at everything that's happening and following it as close as I can because I care and I want to know. Might not be very healthy, but it's something I do. I still have hope for, our generation and the generations that are coming after us, Gen Alpha and all this, that they're just as upset and, have the energy to do something about it and are doing things about it and making things happen. And that's that like faith and hope in fellow man that I've kind of lost over the years. And we're kind of seeing it again. I'm like, if anyone listens to this, we share the kind of the same sentiment of like, we're realizing the elephants in the room are not okay, but we should be able to talk about it, in an open discourse. Even if we don't agree entirely, we can have an agree to disagree. Like there can be a civil discourse about, when they
That
tell
used
you,
to be a thing.
Yeah, I was going to say that's valuable.
Is having that, and then that's also me coming from a much older generation, upbringing where my dad was born in the 40s, and it was a very, like, politics were totally different back then.
Right.
The world was totally different back then, in many different ways, some good, some not. But coming out of that and having that open discourse and not fighting because of that division of, I feel this way, so everyone should feel this way. That's a faulty ideal. That's not how people work. There's no two-party system. It's everybody can perceive the world. Yeah. Well, they say there's independence, but
there's I was told
I watched 25 hours of CNN yesterday.
fair and balanced.
I'm lost. So Ben, what about you? What are you hoping that if you could ideally have an emotion or a thought process or a state of mind that someone can take away after listening to this, where would you hope they'd be at?
I think I'd have to go with curiosity. I hope if anybody sits down and hopefully enjoys the art that we spent.
Yeah.
Hopefully they enjoy the art we spent the last year making, because we're really proud of it.
You should be.
And the subject matter. I hope that it makes them go, I want to go learn a little more about that, and I want to start figuring this out and seeing what information there is out there, and I want to start being a little more conscientious of all these big things in life that, I just took for granted, and I thought, well, this is the way things are, and this is the way things are supposed to be. Maybe it's not, and maybe I should just stop accepting the fact that everybody says it's supposed to be that way. Maybe it's not supposed to be that way. Maybe they just want it to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
Opening the door for conscientiousness is a big thing to do for us. That we all benefit there.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah.
And I think as well, we've got a little something for you.
What?
Because today we got a package in the mail filled with our albums.
Finally.
And so you, sir, are the first recipient of the first CD out of the box.
Oh, man. Thank you, guys.
We will not autograph it and devalue it.
Dude, no more Dropbox files for me.
You have to pay eBay to list it,
Hell yeah.
It was supposed to be here a long time ago, but Postal Service, not the band.
No.
I think if the band had delivered, the Postal Service band had delivered the CDs, they'd be there sooner.
Yeah, they would have understood.
That's the next song we're going to write about is the Postal Service. Have a double entendre in there
Maybe
somewhere.
the Postal Service wasn't what we thought it was going to be.
No kidding.
Such great heights, huh? Wow.
Well, Ben, Matt, I can't thank you guys enough for coming down. It's always a good hang with you guys. I appreciate you sharing some of the nitty-gritty about your record, and I really hope people enjoy it. Illusionary, out now, all the streaming platforms. Got to catch these guys live. If you see this before April 20th, your CD release shows April 20th at Oscura.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Definitely got to get there. If you see it after this, just head on to where you stream all your music at and get on down with this luscious record. Thank you, gentlemen, so much.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.